Hi guys, welcome back to S and Elle. It's a weekly podcast that I'm doing with my husband. The S stands for his name's Sean, and then NL, L being myself, and we kind of just chat about book-related topics. And today, it's actually kind of about something that Sean sent me a link to, and something I think that a lot of you guys have opinions about as well. And it's kind of just about author or reader expectations of authors, especially time management and their ability to get books out by a certain deadline, things like that.
Yeah, so the article I sent you, well, it's not really an article, I guess. It's a blog post by Jeff Lemire, who is a comic book writer and artist. He probably does more writing than art these days, but he has written Essex County, which is probably his most famous thing. He wrote and drew that.
Descender? Is that the...
Yep, he writes Descender, which I really like.
Yeah.
He writes Black Hammer, which gets the
Sean
10 out of 10
Sean points.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? A lot of stuff.
Yeah, he mentions a lot of them in the blog post.
Stuff for Marvel and DC, Old Man Logan.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the point of the blog post, is that he gets asked a lot how he manages to write and do art for so many different projects. And this particular blog post, we'll link it down below if any of you are interested in reading it. It's just about how he manages his time. And it's funny because I feel like he's trying to be honest and straightforward, but it also is kind of like, I'm a boss and I get stuff done. So Sean sent me this article because he thought I would find it interesting, and we keep calling it an article, blog post.
Yeah.
You sent me this blog post, and I did find it interesting. It was kind of nice to see. It's cool to see writers when they open up about their means of getting their goals accomplished. And so he has a whiteboard and he plans out, and because he writes for comics, he was saying that he always is way ahead of every kind of comic that he's a part of. He's always months ahead. So issue, whatever issue 5 will have come out that month, but he's already technically on issue 11 or something to that extent. And I know I did a video a while back with, I don't love the name of the video. It feels like clickbaity, but it's like, do authors owe us? But I couldn't think of another name for the video because I feel like...
You're just trying to get those views.
Yeah, I just want all the subscribers. And that was kind of the question. The question came up because in this other video, which I feel like definitely relates to what we're talking about right now, it was kind of inspired by this article that somebody had mentioned, and it was Neil Gaiman. Somebody asked Neil Gaiman at one point, what do you think about the fact that George R. Martin has taken so long to get the next A Song of Ice and Fire book out, or A Game of Thrones for
the layman?
So he was answering that person's question. Do you have it on your phone, that
I do,
article?
yeah.
So I feel like just in asking an author, what do you think of this other author? It kind of sounds like maybe the question was a little rude, but I feel like the guy actually kind of asked the question politely. I know a lot of people can get really worked up about this particular topic.
Yeah,
do you have it?
I can read what the guy asked him.
Okay.
The last year.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'll read the last couple of things he says. So, with blogs and Twitter and other forms of social media, do you think the audience has too much input when it comes to scrutinizing the actions of an artist? If you had announced a new book 2 years ago and were yet to deliver, do you think avoiding the topic on your blog would lead readers to believe you were being slack? By blogging about your work and life, do you have more of a responsibility to deliver on your commitments? And then the next question here is, when writing a series of books like Martin is with A Song of Ice and Fire, what responsibility does he have to finish a story? Is it unrealistic to think that by not writing the next chapter, Martin's letting me down, even though if and when the book gets written is completely up to him?
So that was the question this person...
Yeah, posed to Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, and do you want to read the initial... Neil Gaiman's initial response is
So
very it's very
So to the first part about social media and like how much can people be involved with, I guess, authors updating their audience.
right.
Neil just says no, period. And then
It doesn't elaborate at all.
And then the second part about should he
does he have a right to be a little let down?
Let down? Yeah, this is what the rest of the blog is about. And it says, yes, it's unrealistic of you to think George is letting you down. Blah, 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 blah. And he then says, George R. Martin is not your B word.
You can say it's okay.
You can fill in the blank there. So yeah, a little aggressive there from Neil.
Neil Gaiman saying George R. Martin is not your female dog.
Yeah. And there's,
it's
some things that say, like, people are not machines. Writers and artists aren't machines.
I think that's exactly...
Anyways, I agree with that. I mean, I agree artists aren't machines. And I disagree with other aspects of this
Right.
article.
So I think that's... Well, you and I have, I think, similar opinions. I actually think my opinions are a little...
You may be a little more...
harsher, to be honest. So, since we're on the topic, I think it's fair to kind of share our views, but also discuss why we can understand and see other perspectives and stuff. But there's certain perspectives that I understand, but I just don't agree with, I guess. And one is the idea, in this case, of him saying that the guy doesn't have, that, like, he shouldn't feel let down. He doesn't, how did he word it? He doesn't have the right to feel let down or something to that extent. But regardless, I disagree with that. I think,
he says it's unrealistic of you to think George is letting you down.
Okay, so that I disagree with.
Yeah, I do.
And I'm not, and this isn't just, about George R. R. Martin, but just in general, talking about it could be a musician's taking a long time to put out a CD, or an author, that's what we're talking about with this, or any kind of anything that you enjoy, any form of entertainment. If somebody says this is going to be out by this time, and then years go by and it's way past when they said they were going to do it, I think it's fair to feel let down. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think it's expected, right?
Yeah, I think if you have any sort of following, they're going to be disappointed. I think that's natural. I don't think that's a unnatural thing. I think I can sum up my thoughts on this whole thing pretty simply here. I think I agree that if an artist or writer or musician or painter, whatever you are creatively, if you don't want to do something, that's your right. But as soon as there is whether it's a publishing company or a record company or any sort of thing that is paying you for a work, almost like a commission, really.
Yeah.
You kind of got to do it. Like Miles Davis, bringing in that jazz knowledge here.
Yeah.
Miles Davis had a record deal, I think, with Verve. That part might be wrong. But
he had a record deal.
Yeah, he had a record deal. And he just kept putting it off, would use, like, the advance for extracurricular activities. And finally, they came a-knocking, and luckily he's kind of a genius, so he recorded 5 albums in a day. And that lasted him for another 5 to 10 years. But I guess that's my thing with maybe George R. R. Martin. Eventually, unless he, like, returns his advance for his book, he's got to release a book. So
yeah, so I think we feel similar in that when people say, well, they totally owe the reader. If you're setting us up for a story and you only deliver, book 1, and it's projected it's going to be let's take Stormlight Archive, for example.
10 books.
By Sanderson. It's supposed to be 10 books long. And Sanderson is another writing machine. The man gets things out like crazy. He has multiple books out a year. He updates people on his blog. So kind of like the opposite of... Why shouldn't... Neil Gaiman, I'm sure, doesn't have anything against authors that do that. He just feels that fans shouldn't expect it. But he's kind of like the epitome of, I can do it all with his books and stuff. And his Stormlight Archive series is projected to be 10 books long. And he's very honest with his fans that he just can't write his Stormlight Archive books back to back because they're massive. They're over 1,000 pages each. And the first 3 that are out currently, they take him a good maybe 3 years. But that's like, you know, you take a lot of books are anywhere between 300 and something and 500 and something. I'd say that's kind of average for a lot of books. Pushing it more into the 600s, 700s with certain books. But it's like he's writing three books in one, sometimes 4 books in one, depending on how long it is. So, yeah, I feel like that, one, it makes total sense that he's going to take a long time to get it out. But in the meantime, he also is getting a lot of other stuff out.
Right, and I think that kind of goes back to the Jeff Lemire blog where he kind of talks about he'll write 3
different
or 4
projects.
things for 6 months, get really ahead on those, and then recharge that kind of stuff by doing something different for 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Which I think that's healthy and good and kind of keeps you...
It keeps you interested in what you're doing.
Yeah. Creative.
Yeah.
This is, I have to say, this is coming from a person, I don't write anything, so I feel like I'm like not allowed to really say too much.
Well, maybe you I think we both present a fan base, because we're fans of works by various authors and stuff. I'm dabbling in the writing stuff, but I don't have books out and stuff, so it's okay. I feel like you're saying like, well, you write stuff, I don't write stuff. But I think it's okay to still have an opinion. But going back to what you were saying and how you summed it up is pretty much essentially exactly how I feel. In that with traditionally published books, which is most books that people are familiar with, you most of the time in your deal get paid in advance. And that advance is, hey, we're going to pay you, let's say, $20,000. We're going to pay you $20,000 and you are going to have this book by this deadline, and then you're going to have the next one, and we'll talk about, in advance for the next one. Sometimes you get an advance for an entire trilogy or series or something, and then you get paid royalties after that advance has been met in the sales. So regardless, you already are given money. You're given money to do something, and now this is your job. They're going to collect at some point. They're going to collect. Yeah. If you don't want deadlines, if you don't want to face the criticism or the anxiety that comes with deadlines, well, then it should be a hobby. Like, I know that sounds really blunt, but I mean, you can self-publish. Right. If you want more freedom and you don't essentially want a boss telling you what you have to do and when, then don't go the traditionally published route, because it's a little harsh, but I know it's a creative thing. You and we went to school for creative things, right? We both majored in music. My job has to do with music. We do gigs, and it's a creative thing, but we can't show up late to a rehearsal because, I just wasn't feeling playing music. I just couldn't tap it. Like, no, I understand you're creating something new, but you still, you may not owe fans, but you owe the people who have already paid you. It's now your job. If you have a deadline at work, you don't come in, you're like, I just didn't feel like talking to customers today, so I'm not going to. Like, you don't get to just be floaty and do whatever. And I don't care if it's an artistic thing. If you're accepting money for something and you commit to something, then you commit to it. That's it's like really aggressive, but I feel like there's so many people that work really, really hard at their jobs that they don't even like. And these are people that are supposedly living their dreams out, getting to tell stories for a living. That's their dream. They're a published author. That's a huge accomplishment. And then to not follow up on the commitment you made, not to fans, I'm talking about literally just to publishing companies. They gave you a deadline. Sometimes they extend the deadlines, and they're really understanding for health, because there are authors that have health problems, and then that's kind of a different situation. But yeah, if you make a commitment, honor that, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like I always bring it back to music because I understand it a little bit more, but it's like if you're a really adventurous, crazy composer and you're funding your album, like that's like your passion project, take as much time as you need. But if someone else listens to that and is like, hey, can you film or score this film for me, and you agree, at that point you then have an obligation, right? You can't just be in your artistic zone. I mean, hopefully you get to that same place. Hopefully it's still an artistic endeavor, but there is a business side to it now. It's no longer exclusively art. You know, it's not just art for being art. It's now art. It's not just for you. Yeah,
anymore.
It's for an audience, or it's for some sort of purpose. And
yeah, it makes me. This is gonna sound as snooty as possibly can be, but because we majored in music and we had to take music history, they talk a lot about how like Bach and Beethoven and all those guys wrote so much music for churches. That's what they did, and they didn't always
make that bread.
Yeah, they didn't love that. That wasn't probably where their love was for writing music. I don't think they absolutely adored writing church music, because church music, you kind of had specific chord progressions that were expected. You couldn't really explore a lot in that kind of music. But then they had their side things that they did. And I think that's where their passion was. And then the other stuff was where they kind of made their living. And so they found a balance of it. And if you're writing for a career and you can't meet deadlines, I think you kind of have to, and like I said, health issues aside, if you have health issues, it's a different story. But if you're writing for a career, well, you made a decision to make that your job, so treat it like a job. What bothers me is the idea that most people, for their jobs, they have a 9 to 5, or maybe less. Maybe they don't even work a full 40-hour work week. But if this is truly your career, even if it's difficult to find that inspiration in yourself for a straight 8 hours, right? I totally understand that, but it's more, writing isn't just about writing. If you're going to be a successful writer and you really want this to be your job, then have a channel, a YouTube channel. Who's the guy? Scott Snyder?
Oh, Scott Snyder.
Scott Snyder. Yeah, he started his own little YouTube channel and stuff, because a lot of times people are under the impression that traditionally published authors, that the publishing houses do all the marketing, and they don't. The authors actually have to market themselves a lot of times. So part of your job, if you aren't feeling it and you're not feeling the inspiration, well, there's other things to do. You meet up with people who are going to, like there's arcs that you have to think about. There's cover art you have to think about. There are things you have to plan for signings. There's emails you have to, you can do other things that are involved in your job. And then that could be a good 4 or 5 hours.
Right, of your day.
Your day is just marketing and editing and things like that. Even if you only wrote for 3 hours, if it's your work day, I mean, it's like a lot of jobs. They're more than just, singers are more than just singing. They have to do tours, they have to do choreography, they have to do all this other stuff. They don't have to, but often it's more than just, I'm singing a song.
Yeah. And that's what I like about the Jeff Lemire blog, because he's so candid with, I mean, like you said earlier, he kind of pats himself on the back, but
justly.
But yeah, he's putting in the hours. Like he says he's like 40 hours a week on art, 10 hours a week writing, which actually kind of blew my mind. I thought he would based off of all the things he's writing, I would have thought it would have been more even, I guess. Maybe like, I don't know, 20, 30, but...
art does take a long time.
Yeah, and his art is watercolors too, so, or a lot of it. So, I don't know. It's very structured. He starts his day at, I don't remember what it was like 7:30 or 8, something like that, and works till 4:30. And then he tries to squeeze in extra hours when his kid goes to sleep or on weekends. And
when he
can. So, I don't know.
Well, and
obviously, I don't know if that works for everyone, but... And I'm not trying to pick on George R. Martin either.
No.
I feel like I have no idea what's going on with his life.
Right, he is working on
on other stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and he's got other things going on.
And he has like a new TV show, I think, coming out. And
he's just always the person that comes up, I feel like, as an example. Patrick Rothfuss comes up, George R. Martin comes up. Those are kind of the names that people immediately think of when they think of. I do want to add too, because we mentioned Sanderson a while ago, and sometimes, I think a lot of people, what I don't think is fair is when people expect every writer to be a Sanderson, when they expect every writer to get stuff out at the pace he does, because some people work differently than others, and they're a different kind of writer or whatever. But also, when you get to that level of success, you start having like a staff of people, so he has somebody helping answer emails. He has somebody helping post on Instagram and finding fan art and sharing fan art. He's got a team of people. Right.
His social media presence is probably not actually Brandon Sanderson.
Maybe not all the time, but maybe sometimes it's just him, or sometimes it's some kind of social media. I'm thinking about Diane from BoJack Horseman, where she takes a picture of the bathroom floor. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah. I'm trying to remember what the...
It's something that
Splurge.
Splurge, or I don't remember. It's not a real word. Anyway, people that don't watch that show are not going to have any idea what we're talking about. But, so... I think it's not fair to expect everybody to produce the same kind of material at the same rate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
certainly.
I don't think that's fair. And I also think, people feel entitled to have things. They get upset when things are too long, or, people have weird opinions about books. So I remember one time, I haven't read the series, but Brent Weeks' Lightbringer series, I think that's what it's called. The first one's Black Prism. And I remember one time he had a blog post or something talking about how he was going to have to make the series longer than he originally planned. He was planning for it to be a certain amount of books, and then he had a blog post about, I just realized that I couldn't actually get the series to be that amount of books, and it's going to need to be longer. I'm really sorry for that. I know a lot of you were wanting to read the conclusion and stuff, but I just couldn't fit the whole story in that amount of pages. And somebody commented, they're like, whoa, what's the big deal? Why apologize? We're getting more books. That's awesome. And this other person commented, and they're like, it's because authors, they just stretch things out so they can make more money. And they're going off about it and stuff, and they're all upset. And that to me is ridiculous, to expect, oh, you promised 4 books and now it's going to be 5. Ugh,
you liar.
Yeah, because at the end, I do want authors and any form of art and everything. I want, of course, for them to produce the best they possibly can. I don't want it to be half-hearted and things like that. But, I do think that there's some accountability. And if you feel you can't deliver what you promise, going back to deadlines and stuff with publishing companies. First off, if you know your tendencies, which I think is, nobody knows their tendencies anymore. I feel like nowadays everybody is not, there's so many excuses to just not do things, but know your tendencies. If you know that you're structured and you get things done, then let people know, oh yeah, I can definitely have the book out by then. That's the release date. That's when it's going to happen. And then sometimes you get people who they just don't work at that pace. Then don't share that. Don't say it'll be out by next year. And then when it doesn't come out and people are like, hey, I thought it was supposed to come out next year. oh yeah, sorry, it's just lots of stuff came up, and it's like, well, if don't share that. I think that's where, you know, in that question that the person was posing to Neil, presenting to Neil Gaiman of, well, if they do have a blog and they do have social media and they do post on social media, should we then hold them to what they say?
Right, yeah, exactly.
And Neil's like, no. And he
yeah,
didn't even...
That was it.
Just yeah, no elaborating on that.
This is kind of a side tangent, but just in terms of doing something. I mean, that sounds stupid, but like with comic books, they're monthly. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes they'll stretch it a little bit, especially with artists, if they really want to keep the same artist on something. But a lot of the time the artist is dragging, they'll just put in another artist for an issue, and it keeps going. Like, Batman is going to come out every month, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, no matter what. So, you know, is every comic book writer going to knock it out of the park every issue with a DC or Marvel thing where it's going to happen every month? No. I mean, I feel like a lot of writers like write kind of some duds, you know, like here and there. Hopefully more of them are, you know, home runs or at least entertaining. But I think in the book writing,
a different monster.
Yeah, in the book writing world, it's just like at least attempt something. Even if you end up writing a chapter that's bad and you just delete it, that's like the bad issue of Spider-Man you wrote, right? Like, nobody saw it, but, you know, at least you got it out. You did something with your day, even if it's at the end of the day.
You don't really have that luxury when you're a comic book writer.
Yeah, it's just, that's it.
I can't even imagine either, because I know just in trying to write a book myself, that you change your mind, or you get to a certain point and you're like, I need to go back and I need to set this up better, or this isn't actually important, I need to get rid of this. You know, you change your mind, and you can't do that if you... Well, okay, so let me rephrase. In Jeff Lemire's case, he talks about how he gets way ahead. Mm-hmm. So I think that is smart. If you are a comic book writer and you don't write ahead, then
you're flying by the seat of your pants.
Too. Yeah, your pants are...
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. I can't even imagine that would be so much pressure.
Right. Another thing is that he says is he writes ahead to give to his editors too, because especially with Marvel and DC, they're not going to let you do some things, right? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Green Arrow isn't going to like murder somebody, right? He can't write anything like too crazy.
But you say right, like,
right? Yeah.
I wouldn't.
So, like, right, you know, he gets stuff out ahead, so maybe he can make some changes, as opposed to...
If they're like, well, this isn't really going to work because of this, he'd be like, oh, okay, and he has to kind of... change that, tweak it a little bit.
Maybe Green Arrow does kill people, I don't really know. I don't think he does. Seems like a nice guy.
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, gosh.
Jeez, you never know what you're talking about. Get your facts right. Yeah. Okay, so I, of course, want authors to take their time and produce
quality
of
material.
Course, yeah. And what you were talking about with artists, it does stink. Art takes so long.
Yeah, it does.
It takes so long. And even the fact that Jeff Lemire was saying, I take this much time to do the art, that's the bulk of my time, and then some of it's writing.
Yeah.
That's a poor summary of what he said.
Pretty much what he said.
Yeah, so I feel bad when artists are expected to keep up, and if they can't because it takes forever, and they're like, well, we're just gonna throw in this artist, and because I know sometimes you'll show me, you'll be like, I love this person's art, look how great it is, and then you'll be like, but this one issue they had to get this guy, this is random other guy, and like, look, it's not even close, and you get frustrated because...
Yeah, and it definitely happens more with the DC and Marvel stuff, because, like I said, Batman, Superman, it's always gonna come out. I think some of the more independent image stuff can get away with, like, Fiona Staples is going to draw every single issue of Saga. It's never not going to be her. There is another Image series where there was a artist I really liked who did not draw a couple issues, but it's okay. I was going somewhere with this. Artists.
How they swap them out because they can't. It's okay if you can't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find it again.
Anyways, yeah, art takes a. Oh, I remember. Okay, so, yeah, so like Doomsday Clock, the big Watchmen sequel, that's one of the few where DC is actually delaying them. Like, they're coming out like every 3 or 4 months now to keep the same artist on there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Gary Frank, I think that's his name. He's really good.
I wonder, do you think it's because people already are hesitant to like that series?
I actually think the opposite. I think they're so confident it will keep selling because...
Oh, they don't feel the need to.
Yeah, one, it's Jeff Johns. 2, I think there's a curiosity to it. Even if, like, I don't particularly love it, but I'm still gonna read it.
Yeah, I'm wondering like, just based off of the fact that because I obviously live with you, and so I know your feelings towards it, which are that you love Watchmen and you'd prefer if it would remain
left alone,
untouched. Yeah. So I guess I'm assuming lots of other people have that feeling.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people do have that feeling. I think there are also plenty of people though who will buy
whatever
every issue, regardless. So
yeah, I think it's kind of, I do think it can be weird how mean and possessive people get of the books that they like. Mm-hmm. And they do, I think, like, Neil Gaiman was saying, they're not machines. And people can be really vicious. They stop treating the authors, creators, artists, whatever, they stop treating them like they're people. And it's like, well, you're not their employer.
Right.
I mean, and some people would argue they are because
they're purchasing
it. But again, the advance is where they get their money initially, and then they don't get money, generally speaking. Well, I don't know how it works with comics, but with regular books, they don't get they don't get royalties until the advance has been met. So arguably, for a certain period of time, you're not right. contributing to their pay. But I never think it's okay. I mean, I never think it's okay for somebody to be vicious and cruel towards someone. Like, if you're like, oh man, like, this is taking longer, then your reaction should be, that stinks. And that's that. Like,
and then you move on.
You move on. Yeah, there are other books. There's so many other books.
Right, and I think maybe that's where
Neil Gaiman
misunderstood the guy, because I read his thing and he doesn't seem, he's just like, can I be disappointed? Sure, you know what I mean?
I think it's weird that he even asked that question.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, sure, you can be disappointed, but he doesn't seem like he's like lingering on this, and like he hates George R.R. Martin now. It's
wasn't the title of the article something like "The State of Entitlement" or something?
Oh, let's see.
It was a little vibey.
It's entitlement issues ...
Oh, okay. It's quite.
He posted it at 10:06 p.m. wherever he was. It was a late night.
Doesn't he even like talk about the beginning? I was coming home from a long flight or something, and he.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't know if I looked at that.
But yeah, so I guess for me, if I, like, for instance, the next Mistborn Second Era book was initially supposed to come out in 2018 at some point, and Sanderson was like, actually, this other book's gonna get released instead, and the Second Era Mistborn's gonna come out more than likely the following year.
Never read him again.
Screw Sanderson, that guy, jeez. But my reaction wasn't that. It wasn't like, I hate him now. Screw him. What a butthole. It wasn't like anything like that. It was just like, oh, okay, well, I'll just read other books. In the meantime, I'll read his new book when it comes out. The one that is kind of coming out instead of the next Mistborn. But it's weird when people get really angry.
Yeah.
And they get super. If you're that upset that they didn't fulfill this tweet deadline that they told you they were gonna meet, you know, if they were like, I'm gonna have this out by February 20th, and they don't, and you're like, what the heck? Well, then don't buy it. If you're that upset,
go to your library, get another book.
Yeah, if you're that upset, then just don't buy it. Why?
Yeah.
Like the audacity people have to just attack someone. It's like, can you still be a civil person?
Yeah.
Like, just be bummed.
I think the reason Patrick Rothfuss and Martin get brought up is just because it's been so long.
It has been a long time.
Like, I think it's 10 years-ish for... Well, I don't want to make up dates, but...
It's been like 8.
Yeah, it's getting up there. Because I feel like earlier when I was saying stuff like, oh no, like, well, they're getting paid, they should just, do it. I still want it to be like his work
best.
and what he wants to do, I don't want him to phone it in.
Exactly.
But I think it's just also like, it's been a long time.
What's funny to me is when people bring it up, thinking, so, okay, Rothfuss. We'll use Rothfuss as an
because his has been
his has been a while.
Yeah, his been a little bit.
It's been a while. But I think it's funny when people, let's say he's nice enough to do some kind of author signing or author event or whatever, and if somebody's like, so when's the next one gonna come out? Do you think at your local bookstore is when he's gonna announce it?
Yeah.
Like he's gonna be like, you know what?
No one's asked me that.
Yeah, no one. What a great question. It's coming out this year. Like that's not gonna. He's gonna let lots of people know.
He's probably gonna be mad at you for asking.
He's gonna be super annoyed at you. Like at this point, why do you think? Do you think that they're going to be like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the park today and walk around and sit on a bench, and then they'll look at their phone and they see, feed the pigeons, and then they're gonna see a tweet from you. It's like, get your freaking book out already, jeez, and then they're gonna. That's like a super nice person trolling apparently, but okay, we'll say somebody with much fouler language than that.
And then
tweets,
like, oh, I didn't know I should be writing my book.
Yeah, exactly. What are they gonna be like? Oh, they're right.
Yeah, if
I do need to get it
if
out.
If anything, you'll probably bring them down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or there'll be more pressure.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like if you're disappointed, then be disappointed. That's okay. I feel like a realistic, oh, that stings. I don't get to get this book that I love.
But yeah, don't attack the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be an animal. Jeez.
Don't be an animal. I feel like that's
this is good
sage advice right there.
Yeah. Don't be a butt face. I don't know.
That too. Both
great
good.
advice. Yeah.
That's why you tune in for stuff like that.
But I am curious. I mean, people have really, really strong opinions about this. So I'm curious what all you guys think. I keep saying, I think the bottom line. I feel like I keep starting sentences like that.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, yeah. Or in my opinion, this is how I feel. That's pretty obvious by now as it's coming out of my mouth.
And I feel like I've contradicted myself two or three times.
I want it to be the best it can be.
But I also want it to come out sooner. I feel like I haven't really contributed.
Okay, I'm gonna actually sum up now.
Okay.
All my thoughts summed up in my opinion. Yeah. So they don't owe. I don't feel like they owe people.
Agreed.
Fans, I should say, don't owe fans. Mm-hmm. But speaking of things as a job, as a career, if you committed to a deadline to a publishing company or whoever you're employed through, I do think you owe them. And if you don't get it out to them, well, then that's between them and the publishers. That's now the publishing company's job to reprimand them. You don't go up to a random person who got reprimanded. Now I'm not really summing up again, but let's say you at your work, you did something you weren't supposed to. It would be weird if some random customer came up to you and your thing that you did wrong or that wasn't your best had nothing to do with, them having a decent rest of their day, and they came up to you and they're like, hey, and they yelled at you for something completely unrelated to them, right? You don't, your employers are responsible for handing down the reprimands.
Right.
So at this point, trust the publishing company to punish them sounds weird, but to
talk with them.
Yeah, to talk with them.
And I had this thought as you were speaking. You know, young writers, just maybe not young in age, but, you know, just starting out, whatever it is. If you're trying to get a book deal, you're hustling. You know, you're like sending it to people, sending to agents, you know, whatever it is, you're trying real hard. And like, if the publishing company is like, yeah, we like this idea, you know, get us a first draft by whatever date. If that's your first book, I think you're gonna make it. You know what I mean? And maybe that's what kind of. It doesn't bother me, but I think
when you reach a certain level of success,
right, like Rothfuss, Martin, and I'm sure many others.
They have the luxury.
They do. They have the luxury of being high profile, where they can take their time, and it doesn't seem like there's any repercussions for that. And
doesn't seem
right. We don't actually know. We don't know what's going on.
Right.
That's true. So I guess maybe that's my thing. Like, it would to see a similar work ethic. I think that's kind of why I sent you that thing from Jeff Lemire. Is like, he's established, right? He talks about how he used to be a cook and he would write at night and all this stuff, but he's a name now. He has the luxury of being a name in the comic book industry, but he's still like hustling, you know, working on 7 projects at once.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I guess maybe that's my takeaway from this.
That you should still approach your work the way you did. I think it's fair of any job when you're first starting. You often have to try a little harder.
Right, and then you kind of maybe get complacent a little bit.
Yeah, maybe not even complacent, but you've kind of proven yourself.
Yeah, that's true. That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, because complacent is like, I'm comfortable now.
Right.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, if somebody falls out of love with writing, like what you were saying, don't phone it in. That stinks. Like it's gonna show.
Right.
And everything, but I do think that there's also just Jeff Lemire in his blog post talked about, I don't have a social life, but to be honest, I don't want one. Like he talks about he loves his job. He loves what he does, so he likes that being what takes up a lot of his time. And then when he's not doing that, he just wants to hang out with his wife and his little baby or whatever.
Yeah.
That's really sweet. And I think that that's a healthy mindset. You know, like it's not for everybody. Some people want to go out more and do more things and then hang out with their family and stuff. But for him, he's like, I love to do this. Like, this is what makes me happy. And if writing and whatever art form you're doing, it doesn't make you happy, or you fell out of love with it for a while and you are what's the word for it when people are like not when you not procrastinator, not that, but like music especially, you get these moments of inspiration and then all of a sudden you work like crazy and stuff. There's like a term for it and it's totally escaping me, but where it's like you're only sorry, I almost wish this was a video so people could see the face you just made. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. But it is a little different. I mean, we're jokingly talking about how this relates to a regular job and stuff, but it's not a regular job in that it's artistic, it's creative. You're literally making something up out of nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're making up characters and worlds and magic systems and all this stuff, and then you're putting it out there for everybody to judge. Yeah. That's not the same as I file stuff and I get coffee for people, and like, not that that's everybody's 9 to 5, but it's a little different than some jobs don't require a lot of creativity. Right. I think that's fair to say. It's kind of, you have your tasks and you do your tasks. And I think some people look at writing as, well, that is your task, so get it done. And I go back and forth, I guess, a little bit between being like, yeah. But I never think it's acceptable to be a total awful human being towards an author. Just be bummed and then move on. That's...
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Like Lazarus. I really like Lazarus. And Michael Lark, the artist, took a year off, which, you know, they wanted the same artist, so the comic was, you know, on a hiatus for a year. Mm-hmm. Which I think is funny, because a year is like a long time in comic books. Like Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples just announced that they're taking a year-long hiatus from Saga to, like, spend time with their families and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, a year.
Jeez, you can't spend time with your family and...
Yeah. But, I mean, for books, it's like a year's nothing.
Crazy to think. If there are if there's going to be 10 books in the Storm My Archive series, there's 3 out right now. I'm going to do some quick math. That's like 7 more, right? So, if you think it takes them like 3 years to get out each book...
It's like 21 years.
Yeah, we're looking at like 20 years. So by the time I get to finish that series, I will be much older. I'll be middle-aged, you know? Like, will I still be making like book reviews when I'm in my 40s? I really liked book 9 a lot. But yeah, it is funny that a year is crazy in
comic book land.
Yeah. Which is weird because I feel like artwork really takes a long time.
Yeah, some of those guys, monsters.
Yeah. But regardless, I feel like a little tiny bit we're starting to talk in circles.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
So. I think that's the problem with...
This argument goes no... It's not an argument, just this idea goes nowhere, really.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to... Yeah, I want Martin to write another book. I hope he gets it out. If he doesn't...
Your life goes on.
Yeah, you know.
Right. So...
And that's it, yeah.
Maybe they owe publishers. Maybe they don't.
They don't really owe us.
They don't really owe us.
Yeah.
And also, don't be a butthole.